very, very clear that they want world domination. And if you look back now and you look at the economic struggles that we have with China, because they can produce goods a lot cheaper, they don't care about human exploitation, they don't care about environmental controls.
You're watching Restoring America, where we shine a light on the fundamental values of this country and all the reasons why they're worth saving. This week, we're going to talk about a popular and fast-growing e-commerce site that is jeopardizing your privacy and our national security. I'm Kaylee McGee-White, and this is Restoring America. Temu launched in the US only a few months ago, but it has exploded in popularity. You may have seen its recent advertisement at the Super Bowl, or you may be one of the millions of users who have made the app the fastest-growing app in the App Store. Either way, there's a catch. Temu is Chinese-owned, which means that this is yet another company affiliated with the Chinese Communist Party that has access to American consumers' private data. It's also a national security threat. China has made it clear that it wants to supplant the US as the global superpower, and it's using largely economic means to do so. This involves flooding the market with cheap goods that US companies can't compete with. This is a dilemma, but it's one that the US government can tackle if it has the will to do so. My next guest today is going to help us break down what the US government's response should be and how US consumers should think about this issue moving forward. But before we get to him, make sure to like and subscribe for more and head to washingtonexaminer.com. With me today is Representative Greg Murphy, a U.S. Representative for North Carolina and a member of the House Ways and Means Committee and Subcommittee on Trade. Representative, thank you very much for being with us today. You wrote about Temu in a recent op-ed for us in the Washington Examiner and about how the e-commerce giant is actually part of a larger economic conflict between the U.S. and China. And you point out rightly that your fellow lawmakers are sometimes scared to take this issue and confront it head on. Can you explain why it's so important for policymakers to speak up?
Sure, and I think the biggest issue really, we learned a lot with pandemic. We learned about our dependency on China. China has made it very, very clear that they want world domination. And if you look back now and you look at the economic struggles that we have with China, because they can produce goods a lot cheaper, they don't care about human exploitation, they don't care about environmental controls. When we have our 301 tariffs against Chinese goods, what has happened is because the de minimis structure that the U.S. now has, China has gone around that. And they've gone around that to put cheaper goods into our market, again, exploiting what we did as Americans in our law, and then it's undermined American business. So it really we have to understand when it needs to be stopped.
One of the potential solutions to this conflict that you mentioned is your legislation that would actually prevent China's de minimis abuse. Can you explain more about this legislation and how it would go towards tackling the Cold War with China?
Sure. With de minimis, basically anything, or rather with tariffs that can be sent into the country comes via an intermediary. China is shipping something to an intermediary who then ships it to the consumer. What they are doing now, they are going around that and they are shipping directly to the consumer. And if anything's under $800, they do it really without tariffs, without taxes, without anything of that sort. So what we're saying now is no, there's no loophole there. If you ship something to somebody, it's still going to be looked at. It's still going to be taxed.
Now, some critics of tariff enforcement would argue that tariffs hurt American consumers by undermining the free market economy. But you argue that allowing China's predatory behavior is actually a bigger threat to the free market economy. Why is this?
Well, when we want free market economy, but China is not a free market economy as much as people may want it to. They subsidize the industries. They exploit human slave labor, if it will. Their practices about destroying the environment. None of the controls that we do here in the United States that would level the playing field occur in China. So it's not a free market economy at all. And again, we have to stand up and fight back against these exploitative practices that China has.
And the federal government obviously plays a pivotal role in that. But another factor of this is the response by U.S. corporations. So what do you think that the responsibility of U.S. businesses is?
I think it's paramount, because not only are we hurting American consumers, there's a question whether fentanyl's coming in, whether China is then able to get things into the country under this de minimis law as it is now that should not come into the country. So I think this is something actually welcomed by the American textile industry.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for being with us today. And for more exclusive interviews, breaking news, and conservative views, be sure to check out washingtonexaminer.com.